And writing and that, you know, all the time, but this is the first time we've ever run a summit like this. So
yeah. I love it. It's a great idea.
It's so much fun. And, you know, we're getting, apart from the fact we're getting to meet amazing human beings, we're learning so much, and people are really loving the community and getting into it. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Awesome.
So just so that you know, we have some early birds and someone's already jumped on. So that's fantastic. So there's a few people waiting there. So how we normally, have you got slides you want to share? Are you more speaking or?
No, I'm just going to speak. I'm probably going to use I'm going to try to use the whiteboard. I've not used it all that much.
Do you know how to do that?
Yeah, I just practice. Like you know, it's weird because I do this in person, not online or on the laptop. So it's
it's very different, isn't it?
Hopefully people will be understanding of that. So I just have to do circles and a little bit of typing, and then I'm talking with it. So it's very basic.
Okay, beautiful. That sounds great. And if you're happy as we go, I might just ask you a couple of questions. And also I'm monitoring the chat boxes that people are putting in different comments and questions. So I'll let you know what people are saying as we go. So don't feel like you have to pay any attention to that. I'll do all that for you. And I'll also there's a way that I can send you a private message that'll just go to you and no one else, which I'll do when you've got about 5 minutes to go. So I'll say 5 minutes to go plus questions, and then you know kind of to get into wrap up mode.
Okay. You're Michelle, right?
I'm Michelle. Oh my God. Okay. Sorry. Yes, no, I'm Michelle. You're Becky, right?
Yeah.
Well, we are in the right place. That much we know.
Yes, that much we do know.
Where are you joining us from?
I am from Missouri, like smack in the middle of the United States. So
fantastic. Excellent. And what time of the day is it for you?
So it's actually Friday night, about 7 o'clock.
Friday night at 7 o'clock. Okay, cool. Yeah. So it is Saturday. I had to work it out. Saturday morning at 10 o'clock.
Yeah. It's that part is weird too. Like, you know, I've been doing that a lot though. I have some friends who are in your area. So
fantastic. Excellent.
Yeah.
And it looks like you've got people that know you're going to be speaking because people are jumping on, which is fantastic. So the other thing that we also do is we take so there's two ways people can connect. One is that it's through Zoom and they've already registered for the link and they have that link and they can replay it as many times as they want to. The other way is through the SuperHuman Summit Facebook group. So I will go ahead and transfer you over to the Facebook group. AJ's saying, hi, Becky. And she's getting everyone to put in where they're coming from. So while that's all happening, that's fantastic. I will drop us into Facebook. It'll just take me a few minutes, so bear with me.
Okay.
Do you say your last name Michelle or Michael?
It's actually Mitchell. No T1L, Mitchell. Yeah.
Mitchell, perfect.
Yep.
Okay, just have to add your title of your talk and then we're sorted. I love the title of your talk, by the way.
Can you hear me, Michelle?
I can hear you. Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yes. Yep.
Should be live.
Just checking.
Right now, we are in the group, which is exciting.
Awesome.
So, a massive
Yeah.
hello to everyone who is joining us right now. So, for some of you, you were joining us through Zoom. If that's you, just put in the Zoom webinar chat exactly where you're coming in from. So, it might be locally here in Australia, it can be anywhere across the world. We have literally had people from at least 15, probably 20 different countries who have been involved in the summit. And that is really exciting news. And for those other people who are joining us through the live stream in the SuperHuman Summit group, just FYI, the majority of our speakers, probably 98% of them, you'll be able to find in a live stream recorded as a video in the Facebook group. So if you want to go back and rewatch anybody or to see someone you might have missed, then feel free to go ahead and do that. But this morning, right now, 10 o'clock our time, and not 10 o'clock your time, but nighttime your time, from the lovely Missouri in the USA is Becky Michel. And I'm so happy to be able to welcome Becky to share her wisdom with us. And Becky, I don't know if you caught when I said before, I love the title of your talk. So I'm going to share that with everyone so that they know. The title is Transformation is Possible, Surrender is Required. I don't think I need to say another word. Over to you.
Okay. Well, I will just share a little bit about me so everyone kind of knows where I'm coming from and how I come here. So I am, yes, in Missouri, smack dab in the center of the US of A. And my story is really very broad. There's lots of pieces to it. So oftentimes I just share a piece of it, but kind of just to give you guys the insight of where I am and where fearless growth come from, because that is what I teach, fearless growth. But because my story is so diverse and I've been through so many things, a lot of times I can relate or connect to people, a lot of them, because, you know, we all go through things. And what I help people with is just taking those things, just like what's going on right now, and being able to maneuver through that and experience change and experience growth. So, yeah, so my story is from, you know, like I've had a lot of things from like divorce as a child, and all of the many crazy things that go with that a kid has to deal with. ADHD, which I also call my superpower.
Absolutely.
Which, by the way,
I am all for those kinds of superpowers, trust me.
Yes, yes. I love it. There's good things to it. You know, I've never accepted that as a crutch or anything like that, so it's all good. And which, by the way, I want to say, Michelle, thank you guys so much for doing this, you and AJ. And I know I was telling you privately a minute ago, but this is such a great event. So I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate getting to be here. So I just thought of that. I wanted to share that with you.
Our pleasure.
So, yeah, so everything from all kinds of many marital issues and my faith and my entrepreneurial journey and like the twists and turns that has taken. So I've just had many things that I've experienced. So really, honestly, my story is one of challenge and perseverance, struggle and determination, and just staying in the game regardless of the pain. Like that really just kind of sums it up. So fearless growth, honestly, just to share with you a little bit about where it come from, it come from God. You know, I'm a believer. As a kid, I came to have a personal relationship with Christ, but it was actually many years later when I started to really understand that. And I then started to grow. I started to grow just in my faith. And I also wanted to say this. So if anyone has any questions about my faith or about anything I say, please, you can contact me after or drop a question and I can answer it. So 10 years ago, I had something happen to me that I call my awe moment from God. And it was just a time in my life that he showed me who he created me to be and who I was being. And those two Beckys were nothing of the same. And it was a time in my life that was very challenging, but it was really, really good at the same time. So from that point, up until that point, I had been living as a people pleaser. And I know a lot of times I work with people pleasers or people who are stuck, and they have ideas what other people have placed in them. And sometimes we just carry that on and on. Actually, I heard someone else say some of the things that happened to them as a kid, they carried that on. And it's so true. That is so true. We don't realize those things affect us, but they do. So honestly, I just started writing. God started giving me this, and it all just came together as Fearless Growth. So I'm just going to share with you a little bit about, yes, transformation is possible. Surrender is required. We have to be able to surrender to ourselves. And, I'm all about being positive and encouraging, but with what I do, we have to start with the uncomfortable because it has to come to a place where we're actually seeing ourselves and where we truly are, because sometimes we don't like to admit where we are.
Can I ask you, can I just jump in and ask you a question about that? Because
absolutely.
I love you, and I really resonate with your idea of starting with the uncomfortable. And I also know that for some people, the uncomfortable is so uncomfortable that there's no possible way they would think of going there, much less starting there.
Right.
So how do we create a situation where people feel like they can start with the uncomfortable?
Yes. So honestly, it's a matter of really reaching down and grabbing a hold of those heart issues, those deep-rooted issues. And I always put it like this. I make it a matter of prayer and of just meditating on who you are, reflecting on your past, on those situations, those situations that we do deal with as a kid. Sometimes those can, be scarring. Sometimes there are things that we don't want to talk about, and I understand that, but honestly, it can keep us stuck and we don't even realize it. So that's kind of what happened for me. I was at a place that I was truly stuck and I didn't know how to change that or how to get out of that. And I always say this, but I want to be the person that I didn't have, and I don't mean that bad, because my parents didn't know. People didn't know around me. And if people don't know, then they just don't know. But these are the tools that honestly God gave me, and I just have been building off of them. And that, honestly, it's just a time that you would reflect and just really get in touch with some of those bad situations or some of those things you didn't ever want to go back to, because it's really important to address them to start with. And maybe we never did address them. So sometimes we have all these offenses or all these situations, and they just keep building and building and building. And pretty soon we have this giant wall built and we're working around it. So we may have this area, our career may be really, really great, but our marriage is horrible. Or, we may have a fabulous relationship with our kids, but not with our spouse.
Someone's just asked a question, and before I ask you that question, I want to just make a comment. I have this theory about religions, so bear with me while I have this theory. So I grew up in a very religious household, a very conservative Christian environment, and across a period of time, I have developed my theory that I like to describe, which is I always think as religions all around the world as like a pyramid, and each religion has its own side to the pyramid. So the only way that, like, what we don't understand is we're all working for exactly the same good, like the peak comes together,
Right.
and yet our perspective and our background and our way of choosing our faith is very different depending on which face of the pyramid that we've seen. So the reason I make that comment is someone is asking if you can share a little bit about your faith.
Sure, I can. Am I good? Okay, you were frozen just for a minute. Hopefully it's fine.
Sorry, no, I'm just changing views.
No, it's okay. Yeah, that's fine. I really love what you said. I like that pyramid description because truly, yes, everyone, well, not everyone has to, but I believe most people believe that there is something greater than us. And for myself, and you're right, and sometimes it comes in to play as like what family we grew up in or what area or part of the country, or, you know, all of those play a factor in that. So I actually did not grow up going to church or honestly with any type of religion. Christian was probably it, but it wasn't ever talked about. So that is my faith. And like I said, I came to know Christ when I was 10, and I just had went to a thing at church. And I, you know, for me and my faith, it is a matter of accepting Jesus Christ, asking him to come into my heart. And that is what started, you know, I always tell people on that day I had an experience, but it wasn't until many years later when I understood what a relationship with him looked like. So I honestly just encourage people to, because like I said, I didn't grow up going to church. I really didn't know anything. So I always encourage people to search it for yourself, you know, search out for yourself how how you feel, and pray and ask God to help you. And I believe he always gives direction in that. So
yeah, no, that's great. And I just wanted to add to that. I think that in my experiencing that our need to create language about something sometimes divides us, you know, because one person uses the word chakra, someone else has used the word God, someone uses Muhammad, someone else uses another word. So I think sometimes the way that we try to describe the faith that we have can actually be more divisive than it can be a method of bringing us together. So I just wanted to emphasize for everyone listening, and also from your own point of view, we within the Superhuman Summit, we are so respectful from all the different faith-based groups, all the different philosophies, all the different psychic views. We've had, you know, we've literally had people on here from all of those different perspectives. So I just wanted to encourage you to, feel like you're at home.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I want to encourage them to do that too. And I've actually been listening to some of them, and they're so interesting. So absolutely. It is, honestly, it's something everyone has to just work out on in their own, you know, within their own self. So I just feel like there is, whenever we can really understand that there's more potential within ourselves, because truly it's about growing and it's about becoming our best version. And back at that time 10 years ago, I didn't have anyone to show me or help me and guide me in that. And I just put myself on a personal growth journey. And truly, personal growth is good for everyone. Fearless growth is really needed for everyone. I have experienced it. So yeah, you don't have to have the same faith that I have or anything like that. We can all use personal development. So So yeah, so fearless growth, unless there's another question.
No, keep going. We're all good now.
Okay. All right, perfect. So we start with that realness, and that's, just examining everything that we've been through and where we're at, and those unpleasant situations, and then we're going to go into conditioning the mind. So when we start to condition the mind, it's really just a matter of, like I said, sometimes we get told things, or we have things happen to us that affect our identity, or at least we allow it to affect our identity, but really it's not. It doesn't have to. As a people pleaser, sometimes you can just go along with everything everyone wants you to do. And for myself, I was miserable on the inside, and I just didn't know how to change it. And I think that's with every area of life. It doesn't just have to be towards people, but it can be, I might be struggling with finances, and I know that I have this problem with them, and I can't get control over it. So, you might be struggling in that area and better in another area, but really conditioning the mind is being able to say, to start with, okay, I do have this problem. I'm acknowledging I have this problem. And now I'm going to start implementing some things that can help me change this problem. So if that would be finances, then I'm going to get someone to help me to either keep track of my money, or to help me with a budget, or whatever that may be. And I'm going to start shifting my mindset to be able to take control of that thing that I am having a struggle with, that area in my life. So once we start that transformation, I have tools that I use to help people do that with, and then that mind shift. And then from that, we would go into the transformation. And, I like to help people, and we don't have time to go through a lot of this, but I like to help people look at the wheel, their whole wheel, and see, how balanced it is. And I call that the joy flow. And then I use it to help people create their very own personal growth, fearless personal growth plan. And that is really customized to them. Back to faith, it's like, we're not all the same, or back to the problems that we deal with, or, how we had to grow up, or where we're at right now in our life. You could be in jail. If you're in jail, then your fearless growth plan is going to be a little different than someone else who is not, because the idea is that you're going to grow there.
So can I just jump in and ask you that it's a great, I love the idea of a fearless growth plan. Like,
yeah,
stop. That's a fantastic idea. What does that look like? Are you sort of doing some kind of diagnosis at the start and then getting into the nitty gritty of what people want to change, or how do you do that process?
Exactly. So I ask a lot of questions. Again, it's too much to go through right now, but I ask a lot of questions, and then from that, we start here and then we end here. So we're building from that question, okay, and the answer is okay, if that's your answer, and where, how do you feel about that today? Okay, so we're kind of taking steps towards what we're gonna start doing. I'll just share mine with you. So for me, what that looked like, because everyone is different, but for me, what that looks like was, I had this relationship with God, but I was also very lost. Like, I was so lost in direction and so lost as a human that I wanted to know my purpose, and I wanted to figure out what my gifts were, or what my talents were. And because I didn't have that, I started reading. So my personal growth plan, which I call my fearless growth plan today, it involves a lot of reading and plugging in. So I'm feeding my mind, and I'm getting into those things that resonated with me. So for me, that was obviously personal development. For someone else, that may be art or culture, or, all kinds of things. So we would do those things that's going to feed your gifts and feed your talents and just help you become that superhuman that you are, that's within you, and bring it out. So
beautiful.
and then a bunch of other things, you know. So it might be you have to cut some ties with some people, or you have to adjust your circle. You know, a lot of times I talk about my circle, and I had a really crappy circle, but not because of the people, but just because it was not getting me, it was not allowing me growth. And without the growth, I wasn't getting to be that person that I knew God wanted me to be. And I wasn't getting to that place of greater, because we all have greater within us. So
they say the people that you hang out, the 5 people that you hang out with the most are the most influential on you. And I think
yes.
I often listen to some coaches and people like that online, and they can be very very direct about the fact that if you have people in that 5 people around you that are not working for you, you need to eliminate those people. But what I found in my own life is that for me, it's been more about, as you grow as a human and as you develop and as you evolve, you just attract different people. And those other people, they just naturally fall away. You know, it is what it is, rather than like a healing process that you have to go through. It's more just like a natural process because you're growing. What have you found in terms of people around you and, you know, people who you're resonating with now that might be different to 10 years ago?
Yeah, so I did have some people that I had to cut ties with, and one of the things I've done is a lot of coaching. Like 5 years ago, I became certified to coach, and I done some NLP practice, and I actually used some of that technique. And I know there's some NLP people on here that have come on here.
I'm NLP certified. Yep.
Yeah. So I actually have I have a tool that I've used to help people learn to cut ties, and that's been very beneficial. But yes, you are so right. Like oftentimes when we just start growing, the right people just start coming and the wrong people just start fading away. That's usually more how it happens. I think in my case, for whatever reason, for such a time as this, because it was just supposed to be, you know. I always say that I'm not sorry or upset about any because I am today.
Becky, just so that you Becky, just
had to adjust.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm going to interrupt you. Just so that you know, I just had a little note on the top of your computer that says your internet bandwidth is low. So your sound is just starting to come in and out a bit. We'll persist for a little while. If it gets worse, I'll get you to turn your camera off and we'll just listen to what you're saying, but we'll see how we go.
Okay, sure. Okay, yeah, just let me know. Sorry, I don't know why that is. So yeah, that's been most of the time. It's like you said, it's the right people fall in and the wrong people fall out. And but yeah, sometimes we have to get rid of. I call it a toxic relationship, or something that's really just sucking the life out of you. So that is actually one thing that most everybody does whenever we start creating that personal fearless growth plan for each person. It is a lot of times people have to adjust their circle, and that may be just going into a different group. You know, one of the things I did was I started Toastmasters. So I started going to some different places where there was some different people and getting outside that comfort zone. So that's another thing that is really, really super important. And like I said, I have a lot of things, tools that I use as we go through this whole process. But that was actually one I was going to share today, was that comfort zone. If it works, if it doesn't, that's fine.
Yeah, well, why don't you go ahead? Have you got your whiteboard there and you want to give it a try? And see if it all works. So just so people know, we're trying out the whiteboard functionality on Zoom. I think for the first time. Is that right, Becky? For the first time?
Yeah, I just want everyone to know that I don't typically do this on the computer, so bear with me. Yeah, it actually...
We do have a whiteboard and we do have both of our faces, and I can see a little pen down there, so even better.
Okay, all right. So it's a little different than what I did earlier, so bear with me because I'm going to make my own circles. This should be good. Oh my. I had tools. I tried this before we got on here and I actually had tools. Okay, that is really awful.
Concentric circles, it's okay. And we also have imagination at hand.
Okay. Okay. That is really awful, but I actually am a much better artist than that, but you guys get the gist. So this is what I call comfort to growth zone. So we start in the center. You know, we always start. Oh,
everyone's
boy.
telling you that they look absolutely fine. So it's all
okay. Thank you guys. You're awesome. You're super. So we start with our comfort zone. And, you know, like a lot of times just getting outside of that, or even, you know, this was actually the challenge I was going to bring to this group this morning. I started to say tonight, but this morning is that I want to challenge you during this time, you know, like during this strange time that we're in, to just do something or try something that's going to bring value to someone else, or, you know, make you feel good. Anytime we can help someone else or give back to someone or something, it always helps us. And that is a part of the growth process. So I just want to encourage everyone to do something that's outside your comfort zone. You know, that may be reaching out to someone, it may be doing a live video, or I don't know, all kinds of things, you know, something within your community or your family. So I wanted to encourage everyone to do that, but we start there. And then from that, there's always a fear factor that comes right after that. Oh my goodness, so sorry. I actually typed all this earlier, but those tools are gone. So, but you know, anytime we decide, hey, I'm gonna do this or try this new thing, and we get outside, we take that step, there's always fear. And sometimes it's just fear of the unknown, or it could be fear of people or what people might think. And those are all things that can, you know, stop us and keep us stuck there. But I always share with people that, you know, if we're stuck, we're actually going backwards. You have to go forwards. If you're not growing and going forward, you're actually going backward whenever you're stuck. So I think it's so, so important. And that's why fearless growth is what I love to share with people, because I think it's so important to overcome those fears. And that line between the two, that's where we really start to do that, and just overcome whatever that is that's holding us back. So from the fear, I can do this. We have learning. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and okay. So we have the learning zone, which is some of the stuff I've just been talking to you about. And a lot of this is learning, you know, kind of just learning about ourselves to start with, and then starting to learn what drives us, what excites us, what comes naturally easy to us, what do we find intriguing. So that's the learning process, where we actually start to not just get outside that zone and start doing those, but conquering that fear. And every time we step into that greatness, every time we're stepping into something new and we're doing something that we love, or something that's new and fun, or whatever it may be, that we're actually now starting to learn that, and we're learning more about ourselves in the process. And then from that, we go into the growth zone. And that's where the real transformation takes place. So, you know, we have now surrendered to who we are. We have surrendered to these situations, and each step of this is surrendering, you know, surrendering to overcoming that fear and overcoming those things that might hold us back. But as we journey through that, now the transformation can take place because we've focused enough to get there. So now all of these things we've been going through, we can look back and say, okay, I learned X, Y, and Z from these situations. And now I know how to push through them. So if that happens to me, I know exactly what to do to push through. Or if that happens to me, I know exactly how to handle that situation. Or, you know, I don't have to allow other people's opinion of me affect me. Or I don't have to allow other people to keep me in a bad place. So that's when we really experience that transformation, and that's the growth. And I just think it's so, so important to always keep growing forever and learning. So
can you comment, Becky, on difference between, in that process you've just shared, which is fantastic, but comment for us about the difference between pushing through those processes and leaning into those processes, particularly in regards to surrender?
Sure. So when I think of pushing through something, it's more of the pushing through is more of the thing that is not supposed to be there, if that makes sense. So if it's a place you're in, maybe let's just say it's a job. So maybe you're working in this job that you hate and it's miserable there. And I don't know about anyone else, but I have certainly been there. And you're wanting to get out of it, but right now, this is where you're supposed to be for whatever reason. And there's always learning there, but this is where you're supposed to be. So you're gonna have to push through that struggle in order to get that better attitude about that job. And that's gonna help you grow into your character better. So it's kind of the push through is kind of the thing that you're not supposed to be in, or it's not always going to be there. It's this thing that's going to go away eventually because we're going to get past it. Surrendering, leaning into is the thing that is supposed to be there. So maybe it's still a job, and I know that I'm supposed to be working in this place, but these people are driving me nuts, and I can't stand, I can't stand these two people that I'm working with. But I know that in order to get that promotion, and then I can eventually stop working, I don't have to be around them all the time. I just have to lean into what that is, what is happening there. So that's the difference in the two. The leaning into it is, I know I'm supposed to be here. This is not going away. I have to go through this situation or be here in order to get to the next step. And I know that versus the other, if that makes sense, hopefully.
Yeah. One's meant to be there, one's like it's not meant to be there. Yeah. And is this a model that you can apply to any new thing that you're doing in your life? Is this pretty much what happens no matter what the new thing is?
Yes, absolutely. I actually have applied this over and over and over. Most everything I have, in fact, whenever I do this, as a workshop or a person or however, it's usually in a group, but as we do this, I have all these different tools, and many times, like these are meant for you to use through the rest of your life, so that personal fearless growth plan that we create for you is going to have these things in it, and it's going to be, oh, okay, I'm not feeling so good. Right now in my life, I'm struggling in this area. what am I going to do? And that's the time you would look back and go, oh, okay, I think this is what I need to do. So I need to stop and see. I need to assess, where am I? What has changed? Oh, this is what has changed. Okay, I've got to get back on track. So yeah, these are things that you can implement to mainly, basically just get back on track whenever you need to, in whatever situation you're in or whatever stage of growth you're in. So how am I frozen or is it good?
No, you're good. I think.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
So what
So,
just a sec, sorry. What I'd encourage you to do, if you have been watching along and listening to Becky, take your time now just to think of what some of the questions are that you would like to share with her. She's got about 5 to 10 minutes worth of content to still share, and then we'll do questions. So go ahead and pre-think what your questions are. Drop them in either to the Q&A box on Zoom or into the Facebook live stream. Thanks, Becky. Keep going, please.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm just going to back up a little bit and share, whenever we first get started with this, surrendering to who we are and surrendering to those past experiences and things, or, things that maybe held us back. It's really just learning to be a new version of ourselves. So, I lived 10 years. Well, I lived a lot longer than that of the time because I was the same, as I was in high school and, just growing up. So I lived 30 years of my life as this person that I really didn't want to be. I really didn't like the aspects. Some of the aspects were fine. But whenever I really searched down and got to the heart of the matter and really was able to really see, it's just a matter of learning to be a new you. So I wanted to just point that out. And then, of course, getting outside the comfort zone, that comes within that next phase that we take this through. And I know I call it 7 steps. Actually, 7 weeks. Not really 7 weeks. It's a lot more than 7. It's a lifelong process of growth. So, but that's just the time frame in which we can start doing it. And then that final transformation is truly about just making new choices. And honestly, that's really how we keep growing, is just changing the choices that we don't like, or the choices that are not taking us towards where we want to be. Just like those friends, just like that circle, those people. It's just a matter of being consciously aware. That's another piece of it. When we first get started, it's important. I try to help people learn how to be consciously aware, and I have this thing I called stop and switch. So whenever we're in a moment that I'm in this moment, I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to think about that, or wait, that's not healthy for me. It's that moment that we would just be consciously aware. So we actually teach our mind, to condition ourselves to be that way. And then, oh, I'm going to stop and switch that. So I may be thinking something very negative, and I've purposed that I'm going to start being more positive. I'm just using this as an example, So in that moment, I'm thinking, I would stop and switch that, So now I'm consciously aware of what I'm doing, my actions, how I'm talking, how I'm coming across. It may be that you're a mean person to people, very unpleasant to be around. So if I'm working on that part of myself, because I've brought that out and I've seen it and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I was that way. Now I'm going to be consciously aware enough to, whenever I see somebody look at me, like, I'm going to think, oh, stop and switch that. So I might say, I didn't mean it that way, and then you just slowly work on that. So that's another technique I've taught a lot.
Awesome. Just so that you know, there's some activity in the chat with people talking about surrender and talking about some of the resources that are available in and around surrender. Have you done a lot of reading on surrender yourself? Is there anything you can share that's a good resource that people could tap into?
Not off the top of my head because I wasn't prepared for that, but yeah, I can place some in the comments after we're done here.
Yeah, fantastic. That would be great, because I think that I think that for me, if I think about and reflect about the difference between transformation and surrender, which is the whole of what you've been talking about.
Yeah.
Transformation for me almost feels like something that someone else does for me, whereas surrender feels like something that can very clearly only be done by me, for me.
Yes, that is right. I agree with that.
Almost like, you go to a workshop or you go to a retreat or whatever, and someone says, okay, here you go, here's your transformation on a platter. After this weekend, you'll do X, Y, Z. You'll feel A, B, C. Here you go, sign here. You've got the certificate, to say that you've done it.
Yeah.
Whereas surrender to me is so much more embodied and active and something that you are choosing into.
Yes.
On your, it has a much deeper layer of intent.
Yes. Yeah. So we start, so like you can kind of see now. Yes, that's why we start there. So we start with that because it's very personal. It's very personal to each person. And then we end with that transformation, which is like that plan. I do hand you that on a piece of paper, and it's like, oh, okay, great, I have this. But it's so much more than that. It's such a deep self-searching process.
And just tell us, just share with us, if you don't mind, one or two of the changes that people have been able to make in their life as a result of working with you through that program.
Sure. So probably the biggest one is the people. Being able to deal with people, being able to choose the right people to have in your life. That is a big one. And probably the biggest one, bigger than that though, is actually being able to stand up for yourself. I oftentimes go in and help a leader, usually a leader, someone in a leadership position, be able to lead better. And I think that, every one of us have things gifts or talents that we're just naturally good at. And they're all different. That's what makes us unique. I love that because that's the superhuman in us, right? The things that make us so unique and allow us to express ourselves and just be our authentic, genuine self of who we are. And that is a big thing for me. And that's very personal to me too. Whenever I can help somebody really stand up for themselves, because a lot of times it's the people with the kind hearts, the really good, kind-hearted people that oftentimes, I don't think necessarily people intentionally do this, but it's that growth. It's where we are, sometimes people get in a situation or a bad place and they don't know anything different than to react and lash out at people and try to control them, Yeah,
and I think the other thing I notice a lot too is that, especially if someone is a very passive thinker and they're used to people pleasing and approval seeking and all of those styles of thinking, and you're trying to work with them as a client to help them become more assertive, what I often notice is that people have a fear of becoming aggressive, and they think that putting a boundary in place is being aggressive when it's not, it's being assertive.
Right.
They think that saying no is aggressive when it's not, it's being assertive. So I think if people are used to being that place, there can be confusion about what assertive behavior looks like and standing up for yourself, what you're talking about, versus aggressive behavior.
Right. And that's a great point, and that is something that we do address, because, you know, it's the thinking. It's that thinking that's gotten a little twisted, or, you know, somebody has implemented into us. And a lot of times, yeah, people do think that, oh, I don't want to be mean, or I don't want to be pushy or aggressive, or I think that's not nice. I can't be mean. But really, whenever we start really digging into that, if that's something they have an issue with, you know, not everybody does, but if that's something they have an issue with and we start digging into that, it is a matter of actually seeing it in a different perspective. So when they can start seeing that different perspective, that, you know, it's actually not you, it's actually that other person that is having a difficult or a struggle or a problem, and they're coming at you in the wrong manner. So once they can realize that, that's what, you know, we have to focus on.
So there's a question, and the question is there a measuring point or a way that we can know? Is there a way that we can know that we are being more ourselves and being more assertive, as opposed to being passive?
That's a good question. Yeah, I do. I think that we can feel it. You know, I believe you come to a place, especially if you are on purposely working on yourself, and you're being consciously aware, and you're looking at things, you know, every morning. One of the things, and this could be part of someone's fearless growth plan, one of the things I had to do, because I was a very negative person back at that time, was I just done a simple affirmation every morning. So I would get up and say, I'm happy, I'm healthy, my kids are healthy, and it's going to be a great day. Like, that's the thing I did. So I think whenever we're consciously aware, so that was every morning, like every morning I'm going to do that. And so after a period of time, I'm doing that. I think it's going to come to a place that for everyone, most of the time, this is usually how it goes, but there's a place where you go, oh, I don't have to say that anymore because I am happy. I am, you know, so it's just those moments. And I think there's many of them that we come to because we're working intentionally on ourselves, that we are able to see that. And then all of a sudden it's like our very own mini awe moments, because we come to that place where, like, oh, I can't believe it, I'm doing this naturally, you know, or, oh my goodness, I'm so much nicer, or I'm feeling so much better, or I'm, you know, reacting or responding instead of reacting.
Responding, yeah, as opposed to reacting.
Yeah.
There's a couple of people just in the comments appreciating the diversity of speakers at the summit, one of which is you. So thank you so much for that. And there's people connecting to you saying they come from a similar faith background as well. And I know that person, and I think that'll be a nice experience for him. And there's also people, as we talked about, talking about the surrender side of it. But I just wanted to just to say a big thank you. We're wrapping up now. If there's any other last minute questions for Becky, just go ahead and drop them either in the chat or in the live stream. Someone else has just said, fantastic presentation. Thank you. But you are very real, and you are very heartfelt. And I think there's a lot of people that can connect with the personal elements of the stories that you shared, but also the idea that you're working with other people. And I think one of the most important things for me off the back of this session is the idea about being intentional toward your transformation, and as opposed to kind of sitting in one spot and not taking any kind of action or not surrendering. Is there any last wrap-up words that you would like to share, Becky?
I just want to say thank you guys. That's really sweet. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me, because I really, it's all about being real. So I like to present realness and genuineness, and I like to see other people be able to do that. So I do wish I had more, like, my resources right here on surrender, but I'm going to get those in the comments. So.
And feel free to jump into the Superhuman Summit Facebook group and put in any links that you have that are there to share with people.
Absolutely.
You're more than welcome to do that. So that's fantastic. And for those of you who I would like to stay online or jump off and get back on at 11 o'clock, our next speaker today is Lisa Gill. And she's also sharing a very personal story about rebuilding her life. So if you're interested in something like that, come back and join us at 11 o'clock. Until then, thanks as always for everyone putting in different comments and really connecting in with Becky. Fantastic that you're the first person on the whole summit to use that whiteboard. So go girl, that's all I can say. And thanks again. We really appreciate your time and tuning in from Missouri. So you take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, guys.